Over the last few weeks, I've been researching, designing, printing, assembling, making a ton of mistakes, all in the pursuit of making my own 3D printed Lego Star Destroyer. I'm a massive Star Wars fan, so this is a really cool build for me. It's something I do with my students in school. It's a very similar project, so I'll talk about that here in a little bit. A couple things before we get started. First off, it's not going to be a tutorial video, so to speak. If you want it to be and you want a separate one, the initial cut of this video was like 50 minutes long, just because I nerded out real hard on the technical side of it. I would be happy to put that together. Just let me know down in the comments below. Second, all of the files for this are going to be available on Makerworld. They may not be up right away at posting, but check back or bug me down in the comments and I'll make sure to get that up if you want to print your own. And third, let me know what your favorite Star Wars movie down below is. Mine for sure is Attack of the Clones. I grew up kind of when that movie was released and just thought the battle on Geonosis was one of like the coolest things out there. So let me know all of your thoughts down below, any comments, any feedback. You know I would love to hear it. So let's hop right into it and I'll kind of talk you through my thought process that I had during the build. So like I said, I actually do this project with my students. Now what I do is I tell them to find a set that they want to do, that they like, and they're going to replicate that using our Ultimaker printers. Now the difference between this project and theirs is that I printed out every single individual piece, and what we do in classes, because our printers aren't as nice as the A1 and with as nice tolerances, is we print it out as one solid object. And then print out the whole piece, because I just don't know, it'd be difficult to have all of those pieces kind of assembled together and try and get, 18 kids to make all their pieces fit together. I just don't think it would be as easy. But I give them this piece here and say, okay, this is a regular 2x4 block, and then we go through all of the different measurements associated with the traditional Lego block. Now, this is your regular 2x4 block, so what if it's not that similar size? I also give them this document here, essentially this screen, this slide, that has a couple formulas for how they calculate their specific sizes for the Lego pieces. Now, one of those things is going to be just how many pegs do you have. So for instance, the base piece on the Star Destroyer is a 4x4 block. So with that in mind, what we can do is say, all right, so the width in between, or the measurement in between the center points of my pegs is going to be 8 millimeters. So what I have to do is take the number of pegs that I have, which in this instance would be 4, multiplied by 8, minus that 0.2 value would give me 31.8, which is the size of one individual side. Now, because the other one is 4, it would also be 31.8. Now, I can take that with all kinds of different size Lego pieces, and I'll talk about that here in a little bit. But that also applies to this piece here, right? So it's a 2x4, so I know that it's going to be 15.8 by 31.8 based off that brick to distance ratio. Now, along that same line, I actually found these two websites which really were a huge help. Essentially what it does is take an individual Lego set and it shows you all of the pieces that are in it. So you can see that 4x4 piece I mentioned earlier, a 2x4 piece, etc. All of these, the pieces themselves. So I'll talk a little bit about the breakdown of like this piece in specifically, but all of these are very fairly simple. So for the most part, a lot of these are going to be 15.8 by 7.8. Because you can think this one, it'll show you it's a 2x1. So we know based off of that 2x1, 7.8 by 15.8. Same thing here, 2x1, 7.8 by 15.8. Now you have a little bit of minor differences associated with them, like your 45-degree angle, the thickness. With these, all of the thickness was right around 3.2 millimeters, which made everything super easy. Now, pieces like this are going to be a little bit different as well. I actually just Googled this piece and the sizes came up for that as well. But based off of what we did earlier with those equations, all of these are going to be super simple to figure out. So we know that this is going to be 31.8 by 7.8, right? So it was pretty easy to put together, but the big difference is going to be how they all fit together. Another thing that was super helpful was this website here, which is essentially the instructions for assembly. This just showed how pieces were about to fit together or have to fit together. And while I think I could have figured it out, this just made life so much easier having a kind of step-by-step guide. So once I had all that information in mind, I actually started to obviously design some pieces. So I started with the simple ones, like my 4x4 piece that I mentioned earlier. So this piece itself was super simple. One of the big issues I ran into really early on was going to be the actual like fitting the pieces together. So that link that I showed you, that I showed my students earlier, it indicates that the width of the walls or thickness of the walls is 1.2. I read the comments of this article and it actually said they were 1.4. 1x4, which makes sense because my initial pieces were super, super loose. So I added these pegs down at the bottom here in between these sections, but they were so loose. So I actually made a full set of pieces prior to realizing that they were 1.4. So that made a huge difference. So I just started with these simple pieces here. Another thing that was a huge help was actually setting my visual style down here to be shaded with hidden edges. That way I could look at it from the top and I could just see to make sure that everything fits as it should, right? It fits kind of in that nice pattern. You can see everything is supposed to kind of mesh in the middle of each other. So that was super easy to do. Just messed around with fits with that as well. The more difficult pieces were these side pieces here. So now it was difficult at first to kind of understand how the sizes should be put together. But one of the things to start with is, okay, I know this is a 1x1 up top, right? So if I know it's a 1x1 up top, I have the idea that it's going to be that, 1 multiplied by the 8 of the distance in between minus that 0.2. So I know it's going to start at that 7.8. And if I know that it's going to be a 2x1 down at the bottom, I know that it's going to be a 15.8 down at the bottom. So I can taper that nicely off in between itself. Now, that website that I was on earlier, it was a huge help as well, because what I did is if I take a look at that piece itself, there is a 3D image option that I can actually take these pieces in the 3D viewer and I can look and see, okay, how do these look from the bottom? Because what I could clearly see is like from this side, well, obviously I can't get that nice balanced look now, is these openings are just actually the same width as those pieces themselves, the top pieces here. So all I had to do was match up those openings with the top section here, apply the bottom part the exact same way, the exact same dimensions, and went to town with that. So these I did have to mess with a couple times, but these came out really nice as well. So it was just a lot of the same thing over and over again. I got into a really good rhythm as well as just, it's making the initial shape, rectangular pattern tool, extrude, all of that kind of stuff. So it just kind of kept flowing well after I figured out the correct size. But you can see I made each of these individual pieces. It's all a very simple system that they have, is all of their pieces are just going to be the same size, all of your various objects. So it came along really, really well, and I just had a blast making all of these pieces. But no, I just had a blast. It was so much fun putting all this together, and it came out so well. I was so happy with this. All of these pieces snap really nicely together, and it was just a ton of work associated with that. But how cool is this? How cool is this? So issues associated with this. Now, it might be hard to see. Actually, that's pretty good there. You can see how like the front of all of my pieces started to actually like warp upwards. And I had to change some settings in my slicer in order to make sure that they worked right. So Orca Slicer is always my method of choice. Now, one of the big things that I had to do early on was adjust my cooling a lot. So my textured plate was at 60. My nozzle was at 215, and then my cooling section, what I did is I had to disconnect this or turn off this forced cooling for overhangs, because what happens is I'm printing these without support because it would be miserable to try and get these out on all the pieces. So what happens is as this piece here comes up and then starts to print the top, it considers that a 90-degree overhang, and the fans were just cranking away. So that started to warp up the front. I fixed that after a lot of trial and error. As you can see on the screen here, all of those pieces, most of those pieces were going to be based on warping, and I just wasn't happy with that. Another thing that really helped with that is if I head into speed here, changing this first layer to 15 and the first layer infill to 45 just made sure that that was much more secure on that first layer. I also slowed everything down a little bit. Do you need to? Probably not, but that really helped a ton with the warpage issue, which was driving me insane. The other issue I had is over time, just with nature of PLA, the pieces don't fit as nicely together. So you can, kind of see like they fit really nicely now, but if you would continue to play with these pieces, they're going to lose some of that rigidity just because it's going to deform the plastic. So a tougher plastic might do better, but for, just something that's going to sit on my shelf, it's going to be just fine. I'm not going to play with it. I'm not going to mess with it. It's just going to be an artwork piece. But that would be another thing to keep in mind if you plan on actually using these to build pretty consistently with. So that's pretty much everything I have. The build came out super nice. Again, I was super happy with it. I made a couple different colors of this as well. Again, just because I thought it was one of the coolest things. So I made a black, I made a white, and I made a gray. You can obviously print it out whatever color you want. Again, all these files will be available to you on Makerworld. I'll put them as like the part itself and then the quantity you need. That way you know when you're importing them into your slicer of choice exactly what you would need. But again, if you would like to see that full breakdown of all the pieces, I would be happy to do that. Again, maybe not the best thing to put because that would be a long video. Like I said, that first cut that I made with it was about 50 minutes. So not necessarily the most enjoyable for everybody, but I nerded out on it hard, so I would love to. If you have any suggestions, please leave them in the comments below. If you enjoyed the content too, please consider subscribing. Right at 700, and the goal is to get to 1,000 by the end of the year, and I'm hoping to do more of these Lego builds in the future because I just had a ton of fun. So if you're interested, again, I would love to have you along. Hopefully you stick around for the next video. So again, let me know your thoughts down below. Love it if you like the video as well. But thank you so much for sticking around. I really appreciate your time, and hopefully we'll see you in the next one. Thanks.